Hey, and welcome to Outspoken, where we are so thrilled to have Outspoken back again for our second time. And the third welcome is welcome back to winter because it is snowing, like a lot of snow outside. So we're glad that you braved the winter and came back out, even though earlier it was spring. So that was really brave of you. Um, and we are honored to be able to gather with everybody here, especially for those of you who don't usually go into church spaces. It is a lot for some people who intentionally stay out of church spaces to come in and be inside one. So I want to point that out as well because I know it's an obstacle for a lot of people. The cool part about tonight is that this is a new way is a church. But we meet in this building that is so graciously shared with us from Community United Methodist Church, which is also an affirming congregation. And we are lucky to be able to meet here. So we meet here every Friday night. We started 2 years ago. We actually have cake and cookies over there as our little 2-year celebration that we've been doing this every Friday night. We are it's very different. It doesn't really feel like church at all. There's no worship songs. There's no pastor. There is just a group of people coming together to be in community and learn and talk and question each other and challenge each other. And so that's what we do. So we have 4 themes that we rotate through, plus a celebration week when there's 5 Fridays in the year. So we have Reform, where we talk about big social justice issues. We just did that, talking about racial equity. We cover all sorts of topics there: mass incarceration, indigenous people, and our, taking and colonialism. Man, that they never run out of topics to talk about in the Reform Committee. We have the Connect Committee, or the Connect Nights, which is tonight. Tonight is a Connect night. We're meeting, we connect with each other, we connect with different religious organizations, different organizations in the community. That's what we do on Connect. Support is the things that we all need support with: depression, addiction, relationships. I'm trying to think. Next week is a support week. And actually, on the back of your paper in your seat, you can see the schedule of everything we have coming up. So that gives you all the topics. I'm not usually the one with the microphone, but I will be for the next 2 weeks. So next week is support. And we're going to be looking at a book written by a guy named Justin Lee. And it's a book called Talking Across the Divide. And it's about how to have conversations with people that you really disagree with, and strategies to bridge that gap and try to get some type of movement. Weirdly, they say Facebook is not the place for that, but I'm still learning that lesson. Again, we don't have a pastor. I don't know any of the things. I'm just reading them and sharing. And that's what we do. So we find something we're passionate about, we share, and we talk about it. Or we find speakers who are well educated on it. The week after that is Explore. That's where we really dig into big faith topics. And we all come from wildly different ideas and backgrounds, and we all still have wildly different ideas, and we love it and we celebrate that. So that will be me also talking about a very niche topic that I happen to really enjoy, and that's scripture and sexual ethic. So we're going to be looking at why the laws are the way that they were and why that makes sense when we look at it in the society in which it was just like that it was written, and then how that might apply now. And then the week after that is back to Reform, and that is talking about the facts and the myths around cash bail. So man, we cover all the topics, and it's so not churchy. Okay, so we'd love to invite you. We will cut. I'm going to introduce you in just a second to Archie. Before I do that, I do want to let you know, usually Outspoken is held in bars and like Sidetrack in the city. I love going to the one. I've been to Sidetrack. It was awesome. We love going out to Skeleton Key. That's another awesome place. And those places you can buy beer. And we wish we could give you beer here, but we can't. But that's how they get their support. If you are able, we would love a donation for tonight, just for being here, for the entertainment, for, whatever. Anything helps us be able to put these kinds of events on, and we're trying to make an impact in Naperville, in a community that's not always so super open and welcome to being in our vibe. So that you can scan QR code that will link to the website, and all the information is on the website. If you would like to actually get something back for your donation, you can donate and get a shirt too, and that's on the website. So we have shirts and we have mugs with our logo. They're all available there if you'd like to get something as well. Okay. Really quickly, I just have to tell you one funny story. I'm not storytelling tonight, but I do have really super one funny story because of the cake over there. I have this uncle named Burris, which is a great name. He's so old. He's like 18 years older than my dad. So my dad was the youngest. My brother got married, and my husband will remember this story here, and it's important for this. So my brother got married, and my uncle Burris was like 400 years old. I don't know. Anyway, it like the reception was going way too long. It was 8 p.m. and no one had cut the cake, and he was following the people around who were like in charge of the reception. He was literally following them around and being like, "Could you go ahead and cut that cake?" And they were like, "No, that the bride and groom have to do that. They have to cut that cake." And he was like, "Well, if you just cut a piece off the back, then I can take it home and I'll have my cake at home." So anyway, we will cut that cake because we know you want it, and you can channel your inner Uncle Burris. I'm going to pass the microphone, but that was fun. Thanks for listening. To Archie, who runs all of Outspoken and has like the best stories. And we get to hear Archie's story tonight, right? Is that right? Yeah, awesome. So here's Archie.
Thank you. I also love cake, so I am so happy that there is a cake here today because that is going to get me through the night. Thank you for having us here. She said, Outspoken is at Sidetrack the first Tuesday of every month. So our next show is March 5th. We're also at Skeleton Key, and we have a show coming up April 9th. So if you watch this and you want to tell a story, please come up to me because I don't have any tellers for the April 9th show at Skeleton Key yet, so I could really use you. At Outspoken, we make it a point to tell you that everyone's story is their own. So that basically means don't come to me. If you didn't like somebody's story, actually just go to them and have a conversation with them because you're here to connect and you're going to love that. Also, we love to talk about gay history because that's what gets erased from a lot of the schools, a lot of the books. So we always bring that up. Did you know it is UK Gay History Month in the UK? I didn't even know that was a thing. I feel like it robs a little bit from Black History Month, but then again, we're not in the UK, so they can do their own thing, I guess. But a famous gay UK person, British person is what they're called. Alan Turing. Do you know Alan Turing? Yes. He is famous and celebrated for the crucial part he played in the victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. He was also a victim of mid-20th century attitudes towards homosexuality. And in 1952, he was arrested because homosexuality was illegal in Britain at the time. Upon conviction, he chose chemical castration versus prison time. And then 2 years later, he died of a suspected suicide or accidental poisoning. Years later, 2013, he was pardoned how can you pardon someone when they're dead? I just think it's a little too late. And in 2017, the government agreed to officially pardon men accused of crimes like this. So everyone got a free pass. And that pardon became known as the Alan Turing Law. There's your gay history of the day. So, are you now ready for some stories? Because that's what you're here for. Except she's going to do one thing.
Sorry. This is really important because we did this last time and we tried to say like, okay, usually these stories are told in bars where it's okay to use cuss words, but here we are in this church, and I just want to tell you it's okay. Okay, so our storytellers, like, you can let it go. You can say shit, you can say ass, damn, and you can say fuck here too. Okay. You can say that here, and I just want to say it all right now so there's no like, oh my gosh, is that okay? It's okay, all right? It just helps, right? Stories need adjectives, okay? That's all. I just wanted to make sure we got that out so no one felt nervous. Okay? All right, I'm sorry.
That was very important because I definitely have at least one of those words in my story, if not 2 or 3 of them. I also want to let you know that you're going to hear people's personal stories. So some of them may be lighthearted, mine's kind of fun. Some of them may be more serious, and I just hope you like sit and listen and take this journey with the storytellers instead of getting defensive or whatnot. So once again, she's pacing, she's nervous. Are you ready for her? It's your first storyteller is Kat Killian. Yes. Kat is a retired librarian, but not retired from life. She spends much of her time volunteering in the community and has a passion for helping with technology, especially to those who are, oh my God, I need you in my life. I am so technologically challenged. I can't even say the word. She's also on the steering committee of A New Way and is an active participant to many of their ongoing activities. Kat does Kat thinks she's funny, and sometimes she is. Oh, and she loves dogs, but who doesn't? Especially not a lesbian. All right, please welcome to the stage, Kat.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm just going to get into it. When I was much younger, I'd pick up a copy of the Windy City Times every Wednesday to see what was going on in queer Chicago. Typically, there would be something going on, some kind of sports gathering, flag football, basketball, or softball, all the stereotypical lesbian sports. There'd be various gay churches having events, and of course, the bars. Back in the 80s and 90s, there were many bars holding many kinds of activities and drink specials. There were bars for the gay boys, dance clubs, and of course, a few dyke bars. If you were looking to meet people, these were all places you could go. Queer 20th century dating nirvana. Back in the day, I'd go out on Friday and Saturday nights, usually to Paris Dance Club, my favorite, to dance away to New Order, The Cure, and Kate Bush. Fueled by all the emotion of bodies pulsating to the music, maybe I'd meet someone to date. But honestly, most of the dates didn't pan out well once the night was done. But on occasion, I'd make a friend. These friends would then introduce me to someone, and occasionally there'd be a spark. I see you. Even a few became a thing, and a couple became more than a thing after a while. I was not the stereotypical lesbian who brought the U-Haul on the second date, and there were more than a handful of nights where that was truly expected. I'd date for at least a year before moving in, so in all my years of dating, I only had a few move-in girlfriends. These relationships lasted for a couple years, then they fizzled out. The truth of the matter is that these relationships were based largely on physical attraction and having a good time. You can have fun with people for a while, but when it comes down to the matter of day-to-day living, physical attraction and activities can only take you so far, usually from lease to lease. It seems like every year I moved to a new apartment, at least the U-Haul was just for my stuff on the way out. 20th century dating died for me in the year 2000. I met the woman who is now my ex. Although the 21st century had come, we met in a very 20th century way. I'd been living alone for a while. I was in a phase where I was riding a motorcycle. So I decided to ride uh, with the Dykes on Bikes parade, in Chicago Pride. I was definitely in my prime. I was fit, I looked good, and I looked really good on the bike. If you've never experienced the Dykes on Bikes at the Pride Parade, it is a sight to see. A bunch of women in jeans and leather, revving their engines, being all badass, riding a bit to the cheers of the crowd, then stopping to rev their engines a little bit more for some more cheers. I know we got some of the crowd's engines revved, if you know what I mean. It was such an ego boost to have all those cheers and the flirting. Oh, that flirting was so fun. If you were a solo rider like me, you'd have women running up, trying to kiss you or stick their number in your pocket, or ask you where you'd be at after the parade. I reveled in the attention. My ex was one of these women. After the parade, I drove over to one of the few lesbian bars still open to partake in post parade festivities, and she was there. She did look good, and so we hooked up in a very 20th century moment to dance and continued to dance together much of the evening. We exchanged numbers, and the rest is history. After a 15-year relationship between us ended, as we were in very different places in our lives and wanted very different things, we really hadn't taken the time to make plans together for the long term, and it was a long and painful process to separate. So I decided to take a year off, an entire year, to rediscover myself and to evaluate my life and to figure out what makes me happy. Finally, I was ready to consider dating again, but I found myself lost. The 20th century dating world that I knew was no longer. I couldn't pick up a weekly copy of the Windy City Times. It was no longer in print. Bars, especially for women, were gone. I no longer lived in the city, and although I worked in the city, I honestly didn't want to hang around after work. I just wanted to be home with my dog. So, what to do? How to meet people when I'm in my 50s? I was clueless. There was no lesbian bachelorette show I could apply to, let alone one for essentially divorced middle aged lesbians. Not that I would do that anyway, but it would be hilarious. Everyone would wind up hooking up with each other, and there'd be a bunch of pairings. Anyway, it wasn't going to happen. So, of course, I looked to my straight friends. How did they do it? Duh, online dating. So I had to figure out a way to sell myself. No dykes on bikes, no looks across a dance floor, or physical athletic prowess. 20th century dating would not work for a 21st century lesbian in her 50s. So I had to figure out how online dating worked. I put on my researcher hat, looked at a bunch of dating sites, and figured out how to answer these questions. What service do I use? How do I describe myself? How do I describe what I'm looking for in another person? I should use pictures, but which ones and how many? Now, let me be honest with you here. Most dating sites are total train wrecks. I was pretty appalled at some of the profiles on these sites. Public service announcement, people, do not put bathroom selfies on your profile pictures. I have no desire to see your messy bathroom, and if that is the best you can do, don't be surprised if you do not get any responses. And please, post more than one picture. A picture paints 1,000 words. I've got to believe most people are more complicated than a simple car selfie or the bathroom selfie. When it comes to words, I imagine some of the profiles, if read aloud, would sound like this. Hi, my name is Susan. I am 55 years old and live in Chicago. I have 3 kids and am unemployed. I am looking for someone to have a relationship with. How I interpret this is, hi, my name is Susan and I'm looking for a sugar mama to take care of me and my 3 grown children who are also unemployed. No thank you. Then there were these straight looking women who were pretty attractive and would sound interesting enough initially, but vague. I learned later on that once you start communicating with them, they have a job they can't talk about, can't come to see you because they don't have money, but if you send them money, they'll come. In other words, hi, I'm a scammer and I'm out for your money. Run like the zombie apocalypse is coming from those women. And then they will even approach you again with the same picture and story, but different names and locations. Unfucking believable. Finally, there are those few who might just be worth to date. They put up a variety of pictures to give me an idea of who they are. They're articulate and descriptive about who they are and what they're looking for in a potential dating partner. And more often than not, they are GU. For those of you who don't know what GU means, geographically undesirable. I was not looking for an out-of-town date, so I made a note to put local only in my profile. So I made my profile, gave basic geographical information, i.e. Chicago area, work information, again, profession, not anything specific, my true age, because that was pretty important, and I told some things about myself that I would find interesting in a person, but without being too personal. making the package look pretty, but leaving the true contents a bit of a mystery, allowing for that unboxing to take place. Trust needed to be earned. I put up my profile, ready to see who was out there. And all the bathroom selfie, sugar mama seeking, and scammer profile pics flocked to my new profile. I'll admit, I did engage at first, still unsure of these new dating waters. It took a while to learn all of the red flags of online dating, how to bow out of conversations when they were going nowhere. Except the scammers, I'd basically tell them to fuck off. That I understood their game, and then I'd block them and report them to the admins. But there were a couple of promising matches. One was someone who lived relatively close to me, as I came to find out. We communicated in the app for a bit. We had some things in common, fun things, a way to connect. We then moved to email, shielding my real email address by using an alias, and eventually agreeing to meet. Much like 20th century dating, this first date in the 21st century was based on a physical attraction and fun times. We dated a bit, realizing much more quickly than I had in the past that beyond those two things, we really didn't have much in common, and she was a bit crazy. The last straw, true story, was when her oldest kid, who was 19 by the way, came home with lice. I was done. So, just as in the 20th century, when I went back out to meet new people, I went back to the profile to meet others, hopeful that I could at least meet a new cohort of friends who could introduce me to someone who could possibly be that one love that most everyone hopes for. I quickly went back on, more experienced this time, and able to quickly dismiss and ignore the obvious non-matches for me, in my opinion. I guess that my profile was fairly appealing, as I had quite a few matches waiting for me to accept or reject. Bathroom or single car shot selfie, reject. Scam profile, reject. Looking for sugar mama profiles, reject. GU profiles, reject. Not a one left after all the rejections. Then one of the GU profiles I honestly thought was interesting contacted me back. Her profile was well written. We had complementary professions, right age range, varying profile pictures that really seemed real. But she lived in St. Louis, 4 hours away, not conducive to dating, geographically undesirable. I was polite, even kind in the rejection. She stated that although she understood about not wanting to date long distance, that she'd been doing it and found it opened up the dating pool. I thought, what the hell is wrong with you? Have you dated all the women in St. Louis and now needed to date long distance? But something in me listened as we messaged in the app. I thought at the very least we could be friends. And then something magical happened. We really connected. Slowly revealing bits and pieces of ourselves to each other. First moving to email, then to phone calls, then video calls. She was starting to matter to me. There was no physical attraction, we were only pixels on a screen. There were no fun dates or activities, just talk. But it was a talk that mattered. That really helped me to know her on a much deeper level, a 21st century level. But we weren't sure if the spark was a digital illusion or something greater. Then finally, we had a chance to meet in person, as she was coming to Chicago for a play, and we decided to get together. And if you're a fan of the Big Bang Theory, you should know about Schrodinger's cat. Well, we met, we opened the box, and wouldn't you know it, the cat was alive. Over 7 years later, the cat is still alive, and we're still together. A couple who found their 21st century love on a 21st century dating site. Thank you.
Oh, I did not see that happy ending coming, and I love it. I also exited a long relationship a couple years ago and had to go on the online dating, and I was totally with you with this story but my profile is just bathroom selfies. I'm so sorry. I have a lot of luck. I'm good. Thank you. Though I did it, I'm on Grinder, which is a lot of hooking up. And I tried to go on Tinder because I was like, oh, I think I'm ready to date. I will go on Tinder. And then I don't know. And then I tried to sign up for Tinder and it said, your phone number has been banned for life. And I was like, I don't even know. I never, okay, all right. I'm just meant to be a hookup queen. That's fine. Our next storyteller is Elizabeth Gomez. She is a Chicago based writer, comedian, storyteller, and one of my good friends. She has made appearances in Steppenwolf's Lookout series, Chicago's Women's Funny Fest, Outspoken. Her newsletter, Mixed Race Tape, is a variety of stories, pop culture reviews, and essays about her life growing up as a Korean, Puerto Rican queer woman in America. She is producer and co host of Don't Ruin This for Me, where Elizabeth and her BFF, Adrian Gunn, revisit old media from their childhood and examine how it turned their sweet little brains into huge adult messes. Really check it out on Spotify. I really love that podcast. Don't ruin this for me. The Waiting to Exhale episode is my life. Elizabeth is a recurring contributor to Chicago Magazine. She MCs and has taught storytelling workshops with me. Yeah, I remember.
Thank you, Archie. I feel like, is anyone else watching Love is Blind? Oh my God. The Dear Future Husband letter. I almost died. Anyways, my whole point is I would like to see a dating show where you two are contestants. Okay. Just a quick warning. I am going to talk about sexual assault, but it'll be quick, and then I'll make you guys laugh, and you're going to be like, I love Elizabeth. She's my best friend. Okay. We all know that the best place to get your facts is the internet. It's where we learned Hillary Clinton was kidnapping children and Pizzagate. It's where we learned about Tommy Lee's talent. And it's also where I learned that Madonna had 11 abortions. And if you don't know this, that's a lot of abortions. And I like to imagine her. I like to imagine this material girl having 11 abortions because I can see her walking into Planned Parenthood with an entourage of dancers in leather jackets and fishnet bodysuits, voguing up to the counter. And then Maggie just flashes her gold gap teeth and presents a punch card offering a free service after 10 visits. I wonder why Madonna didn't write a whole album dedicated to her many terminated pregnancies with hits like Gotta Get You Out of My Bod or Papa Don't Preach, Just Get Me Some of That Plan B. And I like to imagine being a kid sliding on jelly bracelets and tying my lace headband while belting out the song, like a virgin, take that baby right out of me. When I think of the material girl's 11 abortions, I also think of my own. I think about how much I overcame and how this decision made room for a better life and to do the things that I needed to do to become a whole person. And I wonder if Madonna feels the same. I was in my early 20s when I had my first, and so far only, abortion. This part of my life was painful. The man who impregnated me was my abuser, mentally, physically, and sexually. Sorry, I'm going to just pull this mic out. He also stalked me. A year after the procedure, he snuck into my house, grabbed me by my neck, lifted me against the door, and pressed a knife against my throat. I put my hands on top of his, and I searched his blue eyes for a man who once loved me, and who I once really loved. His eyes were piercing, his breath ragged, his hands heavy, and I met his gaze. And I managed to eke out, could you just do it? Just do it. I'm tired. And if we had this baby, we would be linked forever, merging our DNA into an inescapable path. It would be custody battles, handing off the child, birthdays, graduations. I hated the idea of making a kid whose cells were fused by fear and hate and resentment and shame. I didn't want to birth a person whose fate would be living in a violent home where eventually my ex would kill me or I would do it myself. I had no desire to carry a baby that I despised, that made me sick to know who their father was, whose presence inside me made me want to punch my stomach until I miscarried. It was my fault. This man had assaulted me several times, but when I became pregnant, it was consensual. A moment of weakness, a lapse of reason. I can't answer why it happened. All I can say that intimate partner violence is complicated and difficult. I think Madonna would have been really proud of me. I think maybe she would have sent me some pointers, maybe some flowers, maybe a rhinestone shirt that said, "Baby's first abortee." And I went to Planned Parenthood hoping that it would be quick. But I left learning that I was in my second trimester. This meant that I would have a 2-day procedure rather than a 10-minute one. And the doctor inserted a small stick into my cervix to start dilation. And I returned the next day for actual removal. And when I woke up, I shared a room with a middle-aged woman. From my bed, I saw her partner holding her hand in both of his, and he kissed it over and over again. She put her free hand on his head, and she rubbed his hair. There was this curtain between us, but I could feel how much they really loved each other. And jealousy rushed my body, but also hope. It had been so long since I had felt any kind of hope. And maybe now I could get away, and maybe now I could find somebody who actually cared about me. This story sounds very sad, I know. But don't cry for me a new way. In those dark times, I turned to my lace-legging goddess and I counted my lucky stars. See what I did there? And I got into the groove and I shimmied my way back into a space of reinvention and strength. In honor of one of the greatest icons and prolific aborter of babies, I would like to highlight some of the greatest things I experienced in my life since my decision via her song titles. 4 minutes. The average time it took to have sex with the many, many lovers I had afterwards. Once I freed myself of my trauma and my oppressive life situation, I banged every single person willing to come into my gushing love cave. Whether you're a tunnel diver, whether you're a tunnel explorer, a pearl diver, or a whole scuba expedition, I went to learn to rock the boat. I learned to rock the boat safely, and I'm pretty good at it. Get together, as in get together with your friends, do a ton of Molly, and dance barefoot to Calvin Harris under the sprinklers in the front yard of a Buddhist temple at midnight on a humid, hot Chicago summer day. And I can tell you this, not only is it this kind of joy that you experience outside your body and in your body, but it's also the kind of joy you could not have with a baby in your car. Causing a commotion. Along with a small group of women, I contributed to changing female sports nationally and locally by starting the Windy City Rollers. It's Chicago's first female roller derby league, and it's a sport built by women for women. Madge would be so proud of me. Best friend, I've made some of the most supportive and pump you up besties in the whole wide world. Each of them reminding me that I'm not a stupid trash. Each of them reminding me that I'm not a stupid trash human and I do deserve to be loved. Crazy for you. I never like to tell people this, especially to my husband, but I fell in love and it turns out it's him. It's not a comfortable situation for me because to be in a relationship where I feel safe and heard and seen, it's not like, it doesn't always feel like good. But now I am overcoming adversity by letting him love me and adore me because I deserve it. And I think that's probably something that Madonna would have felt, like when she met Guy Ritchie after dating Vanilla Ice, because that was a real big mistake, you guys. My rebel heart doesn't believe that there's any need for me to justify my abortion. See? This is good. Nor should anyone else have to. And I have to express myself by saying that I don't believe that Madonna had 11 abortions, but I also don't care if she did. Have as many as you like, because as Madonna Louise says, no matter who you are, no matter what you did, and no matter where you come from, you can always change and become a better version of yourself. And a safe and legal abortion gave me my freedom and drive to become a better human being who is worthy of being here. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Give it up for Elizabeth. Who has gone to the Madonna celebration tour in this room? What kind of gay room is this? Okay. I flew to Washington, D.C. to see her because I was going to be out of town in February, but okay. All right. Our next storyteller is John Brenneman. Am I saying that right? Yes, I am. Thank you. He is a retired business consultant who worked for some of the best international organizations in the world. He is the father of 3, remarried to gain a couple more, as well as 5 grandchildren to date. He loves to travel and feel how the rest of the world lives. Grateful for the luck of being born in this country. Please welcome to the stage, John.
Greetings. I was, is this on? Hello. I was born in, I was born in the mid 50s and came from a fairly strict home. It was a patriarchal family, as many were at that time. My father was ex-World War II Air Force and used techniques learned there to discipline my sister and me. We were a Methodist family and went to church every weekend. My parents were involved in the PTA and signed me up for football and band. The town we lived in was a small town in the shadow of Detroit, which bordered us on one side. We were a blue-collar white family, as almost everyone was around us. Dad worked, Mom stayed home, but she would take in laundry and watch other families' kids to make some extra money on the side. When we were taunting somebody, I was never sure why, we would call our friends homos, fags, or faggots. Most people smoked, and I would hear uncles ask my dad for a fag. On the playground, if friends did not want to do something that we wanted them to do, somebody would shout out, "Hey, quit being such a homo. Come on, let's go." It was just another derogatory word. As I grew older, I never knew anybody who said they were homosexual. Oh, that's what that word meant. There were mama's boys for the kids who could not get it, and tomboys for girls who could kick your ass. But nobody at that time identified as gay, and LGBTQ was not a thing that existed in my world. Not at home, but on the playground, I learned that sometimes 2 girls or boys kissed each other. That was followed by a quick ew by everybody around. It was a shadowy thing that only city people do. In the summer of 1969, my 14th year on earth, we got a new younger minister at the church, and he started a youth group, which I quickly joined. I found out that joining the church youth group was a great cover for doing things that would be on or over the edge of parental approval. I started a coffee house in the basement of that church for kids to hang out. I had folk singers singing and beatnik fingers snapping, and I met brothers Bill and Dan. They had graduated from high school and had jobs. They had a car, and that opened my world. In August of that year, I had a major choice. Dan and Bill were going to a concert festival in New York. I told my dad we were going on a church retreat. He stood on the porch and said to me as I was getting in the car, "You go with them now and you are out of this house and you can't come home." I sat in the back seat thinking, until now, my biggest decision in life was when I was asked, do I want peas or carrots? I got out of the car and Bill and Dan drove off. They never made it to Woodstock. Their car broke down in Cleveland. One night when we were driving around and we stopped by one of Bill's friend's house, we went in, grabbed a beer, sat down, and I learned that the renters were two men who lived together, not in separate rooms, but in the same room. And another man rented the other bedroom. What was this? This is crazy talk. This is not possible here. I was quiet and I listened to them. I probably stared a bit in awe. They talked, they laughed, they had problems at work. They liked to party and dance. They were just people who had real lives and shared the same bed. They even kissed and held hands and touched each other on the legs and arms. Up to that point in my life, that was stuff only my parents did in private. Over the summer, we stopped at their house several times. The roommate, Gary, started driving around with us at times, as did Lorena and Jackie, both youth group members. Lorena was my first kiss. She told Dan that kissing me was like kissing the dashboard of a car. Fortunately, Dan was there to explain the virtues of French kissing, and from that point forward, my life was enriched. Jackie was the first time I made it to first base. It was awkward, but it was comfortable. I heard from Lorena and Dan that Gary had a crush on me. We were driving along deciding on what to do when they brought up if I wanted to go back over and see Gary. That was the first time since 6th grade that anybody had a crush on me. I laughed as I thought of Gary only as a friend. I did talk with him a lot because I was curious, not so much about him specifically, but more about why his life was this way. Why did his parents disown him? And why did he work in his truck alone as nobody would work with him? He was pretty, well-dressed, and his hair was, as I found out, blonde by chemicals. But I did not feel any attraction for him. I longed to get to more than first base with Jackie. Something had to be wrong with him, but nothing seemed to be. I did hear words from Dan that Gary was going to convert me. That was what was said, or at least how I remember it. But I tried to understand what it meant to like Gary. At that point, I just wondered what it would be like to kiss his fuzzy face. I did not care what my family or friends would think, but it could be ugly. I was wrestling with what to do. His roommates were egging him on and challenging him to make me his boyfriend. And I could not do that. I just did not feel right to me. It just didn't. But I also did not want him to continue to be pressured by his roommates. So on one visit to his house, we decided that Gary and I would go to the restroom together, and Lorena would walk by and tell us to stop. Dan would also a bit later, and then we would come out, sit down, hold hands. After that night, I never went back to that house. I backed off with Dan and Bill and spent less time with Lorena, Jackie, and the whole youth group. I'm not sure why. Just seemed like it had run its course. Never sure I ever reconciled that episode. As I grew and married, I knew that the way I felt was partly because I had lived a sheltered life. I had not been exposed to many things, including the LGBTQ community, and why some people came out as gay and others did not. When we had kids of our own, my wife and I talked about our lives, along with what some of the best things we learned growing up, and what were some of the parenting things that we felt were wrong. We both agreed that the best thing to do was to teach openness, tolerance, and respect. Accept people for who they want to be, but first get to know, trust, and listen to yourself. If you instill that base in them, there is hopefully a much stronger foundation, and hoping that with that foundation, they'll be more informed, be in a better position to understand the world and react if they find themselves into a similar situation to the one that I encountered. Most of all, we wanted them to know that no matter what, they would always be welcome at home. My late wife, Lori, became a volunteer for Youth Outlook. It's a suburban not-for-profit that works with LGBTQ youth, and this opened our world even further as we learned of the challenges those kids face. We immersed ourselves in programs for Youth Outlook, YWCA, and Take Back the Night. I was one of the Youth Outlook Sherpas and met some wonderful people who were there to support the cause in whatever way they could. We did pride parades, open house tables, and presentations. My wife managed fundraisers such as the annual production of the Vagina Monologues. While she was on stage moaning, I was in the audience selling chocolate vagina. Get them while they're hot. We had a basket in our living room with sexual protection items that our kids and their friends could grab as needed. For some, it was a novelty, but for many, I believe it truly helped. There were countless times that friends of our kids would linger around after gathering and feel welcome to ask questions and share their feelings. We tried to build an environment where our kids and their friends always felt there was openness, acceptance, honesty, and no judgment. We tried to provide learning and introduction to alternative lifestyles and encourage them to grow to be who they wanted to be. With all our work, there's an award named after my late wife at Youth Outlook's annual gala, Dare to Dream. I hope we help break the cycle, at least for our family. As I look back on my story, I wonder how different things would have been if my parents' community had been open to even discussing these tough topics. Would we be further along now? I think yes. Thank you.
Oh, we love a good ally. Also, how many people in this room have kissed someone who kisses like a dashboard? Like, you go in and they're just like you're supposed to do something, not just be the wall. Thank you. All right, I'm glad I'm not alone in that. Our next storyteller is Mariela Janelle Gonzalez. She lives in Oswego, Illinois. I have no idea where that is. With her spouse, Allison Rowley, and stepkid, Sam. They share their home with a Bernese mountain dog, Piper. Hey, give it up for dogs. Yeah, they're always there for us. Mariela enjoys jigsaw puzzles, bonfires, and strong coffee. Mariela is a humanist, chaplain, and celebrant. She will have to explain what that is to me. She is an ACPE certified educator candidate supervising chaplain students. For 3 years, she served LGBTQ plus ombudsperson at Advocate Good Samaritan Hospital in Downers Grove. She is contributing author in spiritual care in an age of Black Lives Matter. Please welcome Mariela.
I think I'm short enough for the mic to work on the stand. Is that good? Okay. So, growing up, my father claimed to not be a pet person, but somehow we ended up sharing our living space with a lot of different animals. We had a cow, several rounds of chickens, horses, our neighbor's goat that ate our entire grapevine and many other plant life in our house, lots of fish, and at one point, a cat. So I was the one who wanted this cat. This was going to be my cat because I had a friend who had this sweet old orange fluffy cat, just would lay there and purr, and it was the nicest thing. I soon found out that a senior cat was quite different from a rambunctious black kitten, which is what we got. Much like people, every cat has its own personality and quirks. And I struggled when we got this squirmy black kitten because it was quite different from this resigned elder cat. So my first go with cat companionship was somewhat unsuccessful. I'm going to chalk it up and give myself grace that I was only 8 years old because I hated the smell of the food. I hated cleaning the litter box. I was like, ew, gross. And then the cat would weave between my legs. I was like, are you trying to kill me? And instead of going for the array of strongest Kush catnip that we've got in this cat, it decided my arms were going to be its scratching posts and playthings. It did cause some amusement sometime. At least I thought it was funny when it grabbed my mom's tampon applicator from the trash and batted it around the house. My mom didn't think it was that funny, but I don't think it was because of that she accidentally let the cat out of the house one day and it ran away, maybe off on some great adventure, but most likely probably killed by a giant bird. So I was sad about the cat, but admittedly somewhat relieved. And I thought, maybe I'm like my dad, I'm not really a pet person. And maybe I was just desensitized from the array of chickens and fish that we'd already lost. And I was like, maybe cats aren't for me, but I also knew about my friend's cat who was so sweet. And I was like, maybe I could find a love like this. So figuring out that I do like cats has been much like figuring out my sexuality as a bi person. I've had many dates where it was like, yes, a love like this, you're so sweet and purring. And other times like, ew, gross, what's that smell? And why is this strange creature between my legs? Or I'm not your scratching post or your plaything. Or sometimes I am. Just like cats, people come in all kinds of different personalities, shapes, sizes, ages, genders, potential for amusement. And I've learned to love people and cats in very different ways, of course. My second time living with a cat happened in my first apartment after college. I moved in with a friend from college, and she had a cat. So the cat came first. So I had to move in with a cat. At this point in young adulthood and burgeoning independence, I was kind of starting to come out to myself, but not sure. I also had just spent 3 years of celibacy in a Christian college. So I would describe my sexuality mainly as horny. So, guys, gals, envy folks, although it was the early 2000s, so we didn't really use that term as much. Whoever was down to clown, I was ready, let's go. Except I was also trying to align with purity culture because I was working with the church's youth group, still in that conservative space, and trying to be integritous to what I thought they wanted me to be. So I'm grateful for a new way like this. Good job, sexual ethics. Okay. I didn't want to be struggling with lust like some hormone-juiced teenager, but sexuality is a genuine health need, and I wasn't sure if marriage was appealing to me, but I was basically just trying to figure it out. Luckily for me, in this first grown-up apartment, I worked second shift and my roommate worked first shift. And so I had a lot of time alone in the apartment to enjoy myself. Alone except for the cat. So I was on a particular day enjoying some alone time when I felt on my forehead. And I was like, okay, shake it out, shake it out. I just closed my eyes tighter and then pop, pop, pop. And I opened my eyes and in front of my face was a whiskered creature, paw raised like a fist, like an agent of the Lord, stopping me from masturbating because he didn't like the noise. So I resolved, I had no plans to ever live with a cat again. So no spinster cat lady stereotypes for me, thank you very much. Still, cats came into my life occasionally, and I tried to remain open-minded. I moved to Ohio for seminary because religious critical study felt like the right place for a closeted queer agnostic. So I was doing ministry, and then I dared to start an online profile, thinking maybe I can meet women and just do it, I don't know, some way the liberal churches did. But I would get scared and close my profile down because I thought someone in the church would find out. And so it was like a whole thing of feeling not with integrity. I did leave the ministry, which is a longer story. Like, as you know, I'm a humanist chaplain celebrant now, and so I found my way back. But I was still searching and not having much luck with online dating. So I traveled for a romp, went to like a town over, and I wish I would have known more from about 21st century dating. If I had benefited from that, I would not be looking for a lesbian bar, because apparently there are none. And I'm also really bad at maps and everything. So I ended up wandering into a dive, being chatted up by a guy named Chad, who made an excuse to go back to his apartment. At this point, I think I need water. Okay, sorry, because my mouth's getting really dry, and it's hard to listen to someone who has a dry mouth. At this point, I'm back at the apartment with Chad, and he has 2 cats. A sweet cat named Hercules. I can hold it. Thank you. That's better. Okay. So I end up in the apartment with Chad. He has a sweet cat named Hercules, who's orange and fat and fluffy and old, and reminds me of my best friend's cat growing up. And I think that partly made me comfortable. The other cat's name is Hera. And Chad says to me, like from Hercules, the Legendary Journey. And I say, oh yeah, but I'm more of a Xena Warrior Princess fan. However, partly because I was comfortable, and because after, if anybody's tracking, college, couple years of seminary, celibacy had been going on for a long time. And one thing led to another, and I ended up handcuffed to his cat scratch pole. Thankfully, the cats had fucked off, and we had a nice time. So I've been curious like a cat, affectionate but hidden, independent, adventurous like a stray. And in my early 20s, after that romp, I was ready for a good time with anyone. Dalliances with guys and gals. So I start calling myself bisexual and polyamorous. And my most consistent paramour is a dude who is more of a dog person. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to work out. But that's not because he loves dogs and I'm a cat person. Right then, I'd become much more of a cocaine person. And he's into booze and threatening suicide. So we are not good at relationships. There's a gray tabby that roams around my apartment, and we have a mutually independent and respectful relationship. But one night I do let that cat into my home because it was below freezing, and everybody needs somebody sometime. I end up back in Florida. That's where I grew up. Ready for some healing. Not quite ready to attempt the clean living, but I am ready to embrace a new catitude when I move to a beach duplex with a housemate who has 3 cats now. After 2 run away, and I have fallen in love with them, I adopt a pair from my buddy's housemate, a calico and a tabby. So I've got spots and I've got stripes too, like the line from the Annie DeFranco song. Spots gets off on an own adventure, and Stripes makes it up to Illinois with me. This white and ginger Stripes boy is very affectionate. He witnesses the demise of a friendship with a roommate. He scared me and knocked off my finances when he broke his back leg jumping around in my I think that he landed on one of the last pairs of heels I ever wore, because I found them askew in the closet. So me and the cat got our own place. It's a rough time. He's recovering from leg surgery, and I am imagining and managing emotional and healthcare choice repercussions from a throuple I'd just been involved in. When we moved, like cats tend to do, he hid from me. I couldn't find him. And I was like, but you're my only boyfriend now. I was crying, and I was sitting on the only piece of furniture that we had in the house when he came out from around the corner, hopped on my lap, and that was actually a nice surprise from a cat. Cats are great at sending those boundaries. When they don't want to be seen, you can't find them. When they want to be with you, they curl up with you, and they'll take the pets so they can say, yes, yes, no, not anymore, not you, not now, no, thank you. And I think that's a great example for me. So purr, then swipe away. So as a bisexual person, like I said, I was adventurous and open to many different kinds of loves and lovers, but I too have the right to make decisions like that. Not now, not you, too much. But I did want to find love, not just love of cats and that kind of companionship, but someone really special, human partner for connection and sex. So I found out I could online date again. And that's how I met my now wife, Allison. And Stripes was there to interrupt our first date. We had a nice time. She ended up back in my place. And I was a little scared to make a move, but my cat was not. My cat jumped right up in her face. And this is when my heart broke a little because Allison tells me, I'm not really into cats. I'm like, but despite that, I was falling for her. And like I've told you, I wasn't always that into cats either. So I was like, well, nobody's perfect. Kept our relationship going. I learned as we started dating more that it wasn't just that Allison wasn't that into cats, she was actually allergic. So I'm like, okay. And so I ended up moving into her apartment and my days with a new housemate. So Allison has a dog at that time, a sweet old beagle who's the most cat-like dog I've ever seen because she's elderly and just quiet and doesn't want to be picked up or kind of wants to be left alone. And so I end up loving this little dog. End up becoming quite domesticated, living with the dog, a wife, and a stepkid. Though my therapist recently told me I'm still much like a stray cat. I don't think that's an actual diagnosis, but he did tell me that. And then after moving into a house with hardwood floors, Allison's love and patience of me, and daily Zyrtec, we are able to live with a cat again. Unfortunately, we only got 4 years with our sweet little floof, our calico, Frida Calico. But then cancer. Allison came with me to the vet. She's holding me while I'm holding Frida, who even at the last moment, drugged up, tried to get up off the table and get out of there. We're both telling Frida what a good girl she was and how we'll miss her so. And I've been lucky to have a partner to go through that with. And we have now we have a dog too, Piper, the Bernese, and we just adopted another kitty. So I'm lucky for all the love that I've known. I was gonna say the line for the Annie DeFranco song, I owe my life to the people that I love. Thank you.
I do not know where Oswego is, but it gets wild in Oswego, apparently. Victoria, did you want to take a break or do you want to power through? All right, we're going to power through. We got 2 more stories for you. Our next storyteller is Victoria Highland Maldonado. She has worked professionally as a writer and editor for more than 20 years. Now, as a freelance entrepreneur, she writes, edits, and publishes works of all kinds for others. In addition, she is the published author of women's fiction novels, wow, many heartfelt children's books, and several anthology published short stories in diverse genres. She lives, wow, that's amazing, Victoria. She lives in the western suburb of Montgomery with her husband, children, and pets, and she's an ally on the steering committee at A New Way.
Montgomery's next to Oswego. So hi, my name is Victoria, and I'm just an ally with a story to tell. To give some context, so that Archie kind of did some, and context and background on me, I'm married to a man. I have 8-year-old boy-girl twins, a dog named Mozart, and a cat named Caliban. Again, I'm an author, editor, publisher, theater director, entrepreneur, women's networking leader, dog walker, and a dabbler in a great many other things. I don't sleep or clean my house. So, anyway, I think I've always been an ally, perhaps even before I really knew what that meant. These days, I wear that ally label proudly. I march in pride parades, I go to festivals, I support a new way, and I plaster the back of my laptop full of stickers that have rainbows or say safe space or love is love and the like. In full disclosure, I went to college in the 90s, so sure, I've kissed a girl or two or maybe 5. But ultimately, when I did kiss a girl, unlike this song, I was basically like, meh. You know, it's not personally my thing, but it's not my place to begrudge that for others. So I guess I had a blessed, if somewhat sheltered childhood, in the sense that I wasn't brought up with very many overt prejudices. Sure, my mother was scared of us going to Chicago, Elgin, or even Aurora because gangs. But at the core, I was always taught to value people for who they were, not for the color of their skin or any other aspect that might be categorized as out of the norm. I truly believe that those things, whatever they might be, offer color and interest to the world and should be embraced. It may be because of this upbringing, I was a little blind to seeing people as part of the LGBT community, or it's possible they were just hiding. It was the 80s and 90s after all, so the only time I ever really knowingly saw anyone who was openly LGBTQ was on mainstream TV or in rom-com movies. And those characters were usually some comedic sidekick or presented as a joke or were 2 girls making out to turn on a guy. You know, kid stuff. So even though LGBTQ people were peppered into entertainment and the media, I never regarded it as negative or a spectacle or something that was other. But I really also didn't notice them in my own middle-class suburban white world. Just didn't. That isn't to say it wasn't there. And in fact, at my 20-year high school reunion, I learned that one of the most sought-after heartthrobs in my class was I lost my place? Is now a high-powered TV network executive who is happily married to a man, and they have 2 adorable little kids together. Who knew? Apparently he did. But, you know, whatever. He hit it. I don't know. So yeah, I was either oblivious, which is quite likely, or perhaps I just didn't think it was anything to note beyond people being people and living their truth. And college didn't really change that a whole lot in that respect until really my junior year. I was in the education program and taking a class on adolescent psychology. For a group project, we had to choose a movie that featured a marginalized teen population. This only person I remember from that group was this tiny little mousy math major who suggested a movie before we even sat down to discuss options. I had seen him in our big cross-curriculum lectures, but I hadn't really thought anything about him, primarily because he liked math and I liked English, pretty unmixy subjects like oil and water. So anyway, before our group could even make introductions, he announced adamantly that we were going to watch a movie called Beautiful Thing. For those who don't know it, the movie is set in Southeast London in the 90s and is a love story between 2 young men who are brought together by common violent home lives. The story tells of their growing attraction for one another, from their initial lingering glances to their irrefutable love. Amid the expected coming to terms with their sexuality and the fear of others finding out, the film magnificently illustrates the beauty and purity of their love. Now, nearly 30 years later, this one little tiny independent film still sticks out in my memory as fundamentally significant because it was the catalyst for me to fully realize and internalize that love is indeed love, no matter the players. Like RG mentioned, I'm an author who specializes in understanding and conveying emotional male-female romance, and no, Terry, it's not porn. every time. Anyway, so male tartlet. Anyway, so male-female romance, that's my norm. It's my wheelhouse. But in no way did the love in this film strike me as strange, weird, funny, or anything of the kind. It was, as the title claimed, a beautiful thing. Watching their love unfold embraced all the things I felt in my own romantic relationships, and that fact hit me to the core, and I'm forever thankful for that group project. When I became a high school teacher, I always had my ally stickers displayed up front to silently let students know I was a safe space should they need one. And once in a while, they did. During student teaching, I helped with the spring play, and although I wasn't called on there, I became close with some of the older students in the play who were really only just a few years younger than myself. 3 years later, I was visiting U of I, University of Illinois, my alma mater, with friends for a hockey weekend, because hockey was what we did. And we were drinking at one of the bars on campus, which is what we did. I was already pretty well lubricated, and I went up to the bar to order another drink, and the 6'3" bartender I hadn't really taken a good look at suddenly says, "Miss Hyla?" I took a closer look, and I'm like, "Dan?" So inevitably, hugs and excited jumping ensued, and we're like, "Hey." So as soon as he was off shift, we reconnected. And at one point during that hangout, he just blurted out with a big smile, "You know I'm gay, right?" For just a second, I blinked. I thought about it. And then I said, "That makes a whole lot of sense." We laughed, and the rest is history. He knew I was safe, and that was great. I still keep in touch with him. He's now a lawyer and lives in New Orleans with his husband and dogs. Plus, he's a member of a gay men's dance troupe and performs drag as B. Arthur. He's a joy. He calls himself a little bitch, but he's a joy. Okay. While I was teaching high school in Elgin, I had another opportunity to be there for someone. Again, I had my ally stickers on the front of my desk, but I didn't really advertise anything. Then one day, one of my students came in to see me at lunch and was noticeably distraught. He was always quite animated anytime we talked, but this time it was different. He then proceeded to openly tell me in great detail about this confusing but thrilling flirtation he was having with another boy in gym class. Long story short, he just needed me to listen without judgment, and I loved being able to do that for him. I've had other impactful experiences throughout the years, but the most important involves my journey to faith, actually. I came to faith somewhat later in life, in my mid-30s, and a big part of why I had rejected it for so long was because of the hypocrisy. I had heard and seen how Christian churches viewed and treated those in the LGBT community, among other marginalized populations. Common for churches? Unfortunately, yes. Jesus-like? Fuck no. Aggression, sorry. Jesus wouldn't play that, seriously. Okay, so a bunch of us here at A New Way, we came from a common church that will not be named. But that was where I came to faith because I thought at the time it really was a truly safe space for all people to find their way back to God. At the very beginning of my begrudging agreement to even go to church and give it a try, I distinctly recall sitting outside that building in the car with my husband saying, "Okay, I'll give this thing a shot, but if they ever come out as being against LGBTQ in any way, I'm gone. I will not be able to do this." Years passed, and for those years, I believed I had found an authentically good and safe home. I had learned of and met a few LGBTQ church attendees, so I felt good about being there and embracing that truly loving Jesus meant fully accepting all people. I even ended up running the church's Alpha ministry, which helps people, and it helps people, including myself, come to faith by asking the tough questions, wrestling with those questions within their own truth, and getting to an understanding of faith through logic, non-judgmental love, and authenticity. In my role as coordinator there, I had the ability to actively raise people up to leadership. 3 of my absolute best leaders, Alton, Kyle, and Terry, just happened to be in the LGBTQ community. Truthfully, I picked them as leaders because of the light and passion they showed for their faith, as well as their ability to connect with others through their own stories. Just like we're doing here today, right? But maybe the Alpha ministry wasn't on the church's radar, or maybe the church didn't see those leadership roles as significant, but I never got any pushback for my choices. And they were damn good leaders. But meanwhile, there had been rumors and rumblings about the church's stance about LGBTQ people in leadership, but I had never personally gotten confirmation of anything. Then, at the beginning of one particular Alpha session, the shit hit the fan. The leaders of the church overtly in a Sunday message came out against same-sex marriages. I was shocked, and even more shocked as more information continued to surface. At first, I wasn't sure what, if anything, I could do about it. My life was entrenched in that church, in a ministry I adored, and I didn't know where to turn. That was until Terry, who was set to be one of my leaders for that session, came to me and told me he had to step down over this issue. I understood, but I was heartbroken and confused and dismayed at losing him as a leader, but his reasoning was completely sound. I scrambled mentally about what to do until Terry mentioned that he and Alton were going to be starting their own church, this church we're part of right now. I don't think I even hesitated when the only question I asked was, "Can I join you?" Of course, Terry said yes, with a smile. So my allyship is why I'm here at A New Way. It's been a challenging road breaking off from a big church, but I can't ever look back because I can't unknow vileness like that. Like I said when I started tonight, and I've said often, I'm just an ally. For using that phrase, I've been soundly browbeaten by my LGBTQ friends time and time again. I'm working on taking out the just, but that's how I feel most of the time. For me, being an ally is not doing anything extraordinary or going out of my way or even really thinking about it. It's just my natural default, and it's the right thing to do because people are people. And some of my most favorite people appreciate that I stand with them in their fight. Really, it's our fight. So in closing, my name is Victoria, and I am an ally.
Yeah, that was great. Give it up for Victoria. We can tell she writes books. I feel like I got the whole tea on this church. Wow, that's amazing. You know, I actually used to be a teacher at an evangelical school. Yeah. And then they fired me because I'm gay. It's like, okay, then why did you hire me? All right. I feel like I'm being treated with a 10-foot pole. I typed with fed up fingers into the IG chat. My edible had kicked in. I didn't quite get that saying right, but I was tired of waiting on B. I was annoyed because he would have loved the gig I just finished. Not because of me, but True Blue Comedy had been a night of queer musicians and writers, and B, having moved back a couple months ago to pursue his art, had been down. And I was hoping the night would make him see there was a community for him. He didn't come through though, and I was tired of having B as my B, actually dating someone, and still feeling alone. As the 3 dots toggled in our IG chat, I braced myself. Sometimes you already know. I'd been so excited for B to be back, but he was struggling to get settled and withdrawing. I just don't feel like myself. To be fair, when we met, I was like, oh, this could only be a fuckboy situation. When he tapped me on the shoulder at Sidetrack in February of 21, I turned to see the most beautiful guy ever. Think twink Leonardo DiCaprio with a dash of vampire Brad Pitt. Hot. I asked how old he was. I'm 23. How old are you? His facial hair had misled me. I am older than that. What if I want an older guy to teach me things? This sounded like porn. Let's go grab a drink. See, it was supposed to be a fuck buddy thing. But then we went out and said we were casually dating, and he did things like open doors for me and buy tickets to a play I'd like. I can't even get men with pensions to buy me dinner, but a twink delivering Uber Eats is taking me to culture? I knew I was falling when I let him read me his 28-page novella, complete with a performed musical number, and I did not want it to stop. He took my hand at Kingston Mines on our 5th date, led me to the dance floor, and god damn it, I was a grown-ass man who felt like Kate Winslet in Titanic. And the tourists were very scared. The summer before, I'd ended an engagement, had spent years building that relationship, and when it ended, my heart just felt like another organ. B was going to move overseas in a couple months. It felt really safe to let myself fall for someone who I knew would become a pen pal. I listened to the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack when he left, but unlike Mary J. Blige's Not Gonna Cry, I sure did cry. But we kept in touch. A year later, when he announced he was moving back, I smiled and I cringed. Archie, we are on an escalator, but it cannot always go up. I want to date you, but you need to know my career comes first. He was about to turn 25, so cute. I want to date you too, but also, I am too old for you. But I'm white, so when I'm 40, we'll probably look the same. No, B. I am Asian with great doctors. I will look younger. Back in our IG chat, I watched the toggles until about 1,200 words appeared, but I only needed the first 50. I feel like you're a friend I have an attraction for. Damn. I feel like I've been using you for emotional support. What does that even mean? I need to do life on my own. I need to be plutonic. Dagger. I took a beat and responded, hey, it's okay. I understand. I'm sad because I really care for you and our dates were some of the best ever, but breakups happen. I know you want to be friends, but I don't know if I can. I'll let you know if that changes. Can I still come to your shows? No. I think seeing you would be really painful. Heard. She gets that. That is not what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, you're gaslighting the fuck out of me right now, which is beneath you. All we do is go to art and have naked sleepovers. What is not to like? Let's just take a breather. I still wonder if there's something I should have said differently, but my ex taught me that you can fight for someone for a long time for what feels right with every chick you've got, but people aren't prizes. When the time comes, they do what they want and need to. My favorite phrase of 2023, let them. 3 months later, I couldn't let go of this nagging feeling that the end didn't quite sit right with me. We became polys together, and polys are supposed to be really good at communication and accepting when the relationships morph into something else. Didn't I, as the older gay here, need to be more understanding? I let those thoughts bounce in my head. I was so sad when I lost B, though. I did some really stupid things to numb the pain, and I didn't want to do that again. A couple weeks ago, I opened up my Facebook and there was B, half naked on Sidetrack's page. He looked good, but more importantly, he looked happy, even if just for a pic. I opened our IG chat, which I had completely deleted. Hey, did you see Sidetrack's Facebook? You're all over it. It's so good to see you happy and out. By the way, time heals, and I think at this point, I'd be happy to run into you at a show. Maybe we can even catch up as friends sometime. We chatted for a couple days. He never really answered the question, how are you? Which I find worrisome, but we talked about art and did a few LOLs and LMAOs. I want to be in a place where I could be real friends with him, but I think that'll take more time. And honestly, it sounds kind of messy. I still feel the need to protect myself. However, just being able to talk feels right. When I think back to my time being bees with B, I smile. And I think that's the most you can ask for when it comes to dating. Hallmark cards say people come into your life for a reason, season, or a lifetime. I would like that third, but 2 out of 3 is still a win. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our storytellers. Someone's coming up to take the mic from me. I can tell. Please continue. Oh yeah. No. I don't know what else to say then. April 9th, Skeleton Crew Brewery, March 5th in Chicago. If you happen to be in Chicago, yeah.
Thanks, Archie. And again, thank you for all of our storytellers. It's a lot to get up here and share the funny stuff and the hard stuff and the personal stuff. And it's great to be in a small space and share these intimate stories with each other. Thank you for coming tonight. Hopefully, our cars aren't covered in inches of snow. But it'll be 70 again later this week, so that'll be great. One thing that we forgot that that's like when we're packing for trips. My husband will be like, "Did we pack the?" I'm like, "I don't know what you mean by we, but yes, I packed for everyone." I forgot to mention Youth Outlook, and that was I missed that. We have 2 boxes for donations over there because the work that Youth Outlook does is very important. And Youth Outlook is a part of all the Outspoken events, right? Skeleton Key. Okay. But we also have Youth Outlook people here. So we want to make sure that we do put a box out there. So you will see a black box that is a New Way donations. And we also encourage donations to Youth Outlook as well and the work that they are doing to provide safe spaces, drop-in trainings for kids, for parents, for all the things. We know the important work that is, and also speakers coming up here afterwards for a picture. Okay, and sorry, that was like charades just then. One word, 2. Please help yourself to cake. The yellow cake is gluten-free. The chocolate is regular. Empty out the juices, take all the things as you go hang out and talk for a little bit if you'd like. Storytellers should come up here and get a photo. So again, thank you all so much. We'll be here all the Fridays and we'd love for you to join us. Thank you.